In fact, some integrations are worth up to $100,000, $200,000 because of the size of Bebo's audience. And Bebo's also has a social media component to it. But again, looking at the scope of the audience, the size of the audience of Facebook, as KK demonstrated, it's $70 million. It's just a huge audience. But again, I just wanted to try and give some perspective to developers today that whilst you may be trying to invent and create opportunities to create revenues for yourselves, there is going to be an opportunity out there for you guys to seek and reach out to brand owner budgets. So that's something there that's really a real opportunity we consider. The reason for this is the brands are now looking to take ownership rather than just, say, spend $300,000 on a television commercial campaign that might be just a one-off opportunity. The opportunity to own a branded content, be it audio-visual, be it an application, is that it would add to the brand's content library for all time. So rather than just having a one-off TVC, television commercial, you could actually own the content. Hence why the brands are now heavily becoming involved in commissioning audio-visual content and getting involved themselves in these types of campaigns, such as Dell and BMW. The type of words that the brands are using to describe, obviously, these types of communications are obviously, there's a high level of involvement, there's a high level of engagement with customers, with audiences. And I think in this case, the best word to describe that would be there's a high level of the participation, that you're really getting your audience or your customer involved heavily in participation. The requirements for you as a developer, KK touched upon. In the ad world, we talk about frequency, reach. KK demonstrated to you the demographics. We have to be mindful of that. If, as a developer, you don't have that knowledge, you should outsource that knowledge. It's not enough to just, I think, to come up with the creative. So in this part of the world, analytics is going to be extremely important. You can't just, as the gentleman said earlier in the audience, just what is the success of these applications? Does it come down to the number or number of installations of your application? Ultimately, you want to make money, but when there's a campaign involved, and we're dealing with brand budgets, they want results. So I think the end game, if you're dealing with an application that's been commissioned, you have a direct client relationship, and I think Toby's going to talk about that from a case study point of view with his experience with Gillette. Is that right? Yeah. Accountability is going to be really, really important. We know that obviously the Facebook marketplace has its own metrics, analytics. Things can be judged up until a point. You know that there are X number of installations versus de-installations, but you need to take a little bit further. There's one company you might want to make a note of. That's Symmetrics.com. Symmetrics just undergoing its second round venture capital funding. It's underwritten by a number of key players in Silicon Valley, and they are literally going to establish the gold standard when it comes to accountability, analytics and metrics, because this is the sorts of demands that will be placed upon you if you're going to be dealing with ad campaigns. So I think that's the really most important thing. The other thing is that social media is such a new thing. It's often seen, because it's so new, in isolation. And although we see social media in isolation, I think it's also a sibling of the virtual world. And we're seeing now the very smart companies who are dealing in platforms or in platforms, not so much applications. I think the most successful formula will be in the area that a platform which combines the virtual with the social. So you've got a high level of interaction there and a high level of probably intimacy between audiences inside that world. So for a brand to be involved inside that world, it's very attractive. And then I think obviously the gaming component too. So the opportunity for an application in that environment, in our research, is that if you can come up with an application in these sorts of environments, even in Facebook, that has a user-generated component to it, then that would be very compelling. I think that would be a very compelling proposition to discuss in a brief with an advertiser. The research that we look at is that users are very interested. They might download or install, say, a Levi's 501 application, but in these virtual social media environments, there's also an interest in actually the end user being able to create their own content. And that's really harking back on what KK said is, loosen up, let control. And I think you'll find that if you inform yourself and develop that outlook in dealing with brands, then you'll have a compelling proposition in obviously taking a creative brief with the brand, executing that. So I think it's always pushing the boundary and being mindful of all the other components, because from a brand point of view, the question was put earlier, was this Dell campaign just a one-off campaign in isolation? I doubt it. I think that there would have been other communication type messaging going on outside of that, because the discussion now is for a complete, fully 360-degree integrated marketing solution. All the top business schools now talk about the terminology being integrated marketing. So it would be from a complete 360-degree point of view, because I know that for a fact, because when we deal with film and television producers, typically the TV project or the film project will tentpole that opportunity, and all the messaging is communicated around that, offline, online, off-deck, gaming, everything. And everything is built on the intellectual property of the tentpole of that property. And the studios, the film studios, do it best. Sex and the City would be a good example coming out. You'll start to see more sort of out-of-home advertising. Everything will be built around that. And when we think of brands, we often think of like a deodorant brand, but Warner Brothers, 20th Century Fox, these are entertainment brands in their own right, and they know that through their communication messaging that they do it similarly to any other brand, be it an automotive brand or a homeware brand. So that's all I really wanted to talk about. It's an opportunity. This is a brand new world, obviously, to excuse the pun. Obviously, I mean, this is a classic example, just looking at the imagery of obviously the dynamic there of who would have thought, 10 years ago, the dynamic there of the artistic world meets the brand. But that's what's going on. The brands are obviously looking to marry themselves up with the content. It's a huge opportunity, huge time for content producers to partner with brands, so it's a very interesting time. Just in recapping, some of the campaigns, I mean, you look at the top developers, obviously, in the top rankings, 100 top developers, your Slide, your RockU. I think KK mentioned the BMW, but I know that Slide and RockU, if you look at some of their case studies and some of their new products which they're developing, they are squarely focused, and they don't have any contrition to say it. They're interested in digital product placement. That's their whole agenda. And one of their campaigns was recently for the cosmetic brand Estee Lauder, using their Super Poke application, and somehow allowing an Estee Lauder fragrance to actually be involved in the whole Super Poke thing. I haven't seen it, but I've heard about it. They also recently have done something for Coke's vitamin water. And these are commissioned opportunities. So as again, in shop we have numerous brand. We have access. We have both signed up clients. We have also access to brand owners and brand managers, and we work with and have continued to develop a number, as I say, of third-party content producers. But our point of view, our perspective on developers is that we would outsource. If we came into contact with an advertiser, two of them, we have two clients. One in Switzerland is a couture brand, nicolinacouture.com is a new brand, and they're looking at doing a virtual goods application for high heel shoes for girls in the audience. There's an opportunity there, because what we're finding is in the social media world, and if you've got your own personal page, obviously there's a propensity for users to actually display and show off the brands that they love in the real world, similarly with the brands that they like